Hey guys, so first things first, I want to thank all of you for the insane amount of enthusiasm that I got for the last video in which I talked about Super Sentai. I just thought it'd be a fun thing for for you guys to have a laugh at my expense, uh, at my experience of watching shows from this genre for the first time ever, and it ended up being one of the coolest and most fun bonding experiences I've had with you guys. Very cool, very welcoming. Of course, there's the occasional gatekeeping dude bro that will make comments like in every fandom, but for the most part, I've had a very positive experience these past few weeks with Super Sentai fans. So thank you for that. And those of you who are gatekeeping insane weirdos who want to protect the sanctity of people in spandex and helmets beating up rubber monsters, you can go sit on your power morpher. Anyway, um, so I figured I'd continue this and continue sharing my experience watching these shows. Today, I am going to talk about the next two shows that Mighty Morphing Power Rangers took Sentai footage from. Last time I talked about the first two that were most responsible for influencing the creation of Power Rangers. The first one being Bioman, which was the first show that Hayam Saban intended to adapt into Power Rangers, but it didn't work out. And the second one being Dinosaur Squadron Dairanger, which is where all of the Super Sentai footage from season 1 of Mighty Morphing Power Rangers comes from. Let's kick things off today by talking about the second show that Mighty Morphing Power Rangers took Sentai footage from, this time specifically for season 2 of Mighty Morphing Power Rangers. And that show is No 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 Dairanger, or 5-Star Squadron Dairanger. Anyway, so two major elements from Mighty Morphing Power Rangers come from this show. The first being their mechs, which inexplicably changed from prehistoric creature theme to Chinese mythological creature theme. I know that they lost their original mechs, their original Zords. I'm aware of that, and they needed replacements. Okay, I understand the context of the story. What I don't understand is, how did they go from prehistoric creatures to creatures of Chinese mythology? That is not explained, but what's funny is that as a kid, when I first saw that, I just accepted it. It wasn't until about a year later that I was like, wait a minute, what's with all the Chinese writing and them suddenly being creatures of mythology, and their helmets stayed the same. Well, the reason for that is because the Rangers' costumes were so iconic that it would have been a financial mistake, a commercial mistake to change them, because those suits became a brand. But they needed more Sentai footage for those robot and monster fights, so they took a chance and they changed the mechs, and it worked. It worked because the show, the rating stayed really high, in spite of that very jarring change. So number one, the mechs. The second huge thing that they took from Dairanger, that it has now become a major staple of Power Rangers mythology, was the White Ranger. From Dinosaur Squadron Dairanger onwards, it becomes a tradition for every Super Sentai series to introduce a 6th Ranger midway through the show. Now, for those of you who haven't seen Dinosaur Squadron Dairanger and are interested in checking it out, it's available right now on Tubi for free. If you want to watch it, you might want to stop the video here because I'm going to spoil a major thing, a major plot point from the show right now. You've been warned. So, the Sixth Ranger from that show, the Green Ranger, dies. And that was very much the plan for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1, to introduce Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, first as a villain, just like in Zyuranger, and have him become an ally to the Five Rangers, just like in Zyuranger, and then kill him off, just like in Zyuranger. And he stays dead, just like in Zyuranger. A very bold, very awesome story, but it had one little itty-bitty little hitch when they adapted it for Power Rangers, which was that Tommy Oliver ended up being the most popular character that season, where it would have been marketing and merchandising suicide to keep him dead. So the original plan going into Season 2 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was that Tommy was dead, and to introduce a new Sixth Ranger in his place, the White Ranger. And to keep that Ranger's identity a secret and build it up and then reveal him to be a whole new character played by Brad Hawkins. But like I said, Tommy Oliver was such a huge character and he was so beloved that during post-production of Power Rangers Season 1, while they were finishing that up and the ratings and reactions and reviews to the first half of the season was coming in, they completely decided to pivot and change their plans and make Tommy Oliver the White Ranger, and they relegated Brad Hawkins, the original choice for the White Ranger, to be the lead in VR Troopers. Remember that show? Yeah, I saw the first episode as in my preteens and said, no thanks, I'm good. It just looked, it might be a good show, I don't know, but it just looked so aesthetically displeasing that I couldn't stand to watch. I could barely get through one episode, let alone a whole season. Anyway, so that's what happened to the White Ranger in America. In Dairanger in Japan, it's a whole other story, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Let's talk about 5-Star Squadron Dairanger. What the hell is this show about? Well, while the show was produced in Japan, the theme of the show is Chinese mythology. The martial arts that the Rangers use, the folklore in their backstory, as well as the creatures that they fight, and their mechs are all based on Chinese mythology, in spite of it being a Japanese show. People just automatically expect everything to be Japanese in these shows. Why would they be? Does everything that America produce have to do with American mythology or American folklore? No. We steal everybody else's culture when making our media. So there you go. So why can't Japanese people do the same? Anyway, so here's the backstory to 5-Star Squadron Zyuranger. So basically, Dairanger, excuse me. So basically, there's these two warring tribes who have been fighting each other for years. There's the Gorma, who believe in Yo power, and there are the Dai, who believe in Chi power. They've been suffering casualties on both sides to the point where both sides have nearly died out. And the conflict has gone quiet for many years. Flash forward to the present. Miraculously, the Gorma have returned in mass. They have soldiers, they have resources, they are ready to impose their will and their belief structure onto the world. There's hardly any Dai left. Like I said, the conflict has been dormant for a long time. So one of the members of the Gorma, Master Kaku, defects to the Dai side and assembles a group of young people with high levels of chi power in their system to represent the Dai as the Dairanger. Here's the thing about the show. The pacing and the storytelling for the first 16 episodes, not that good. It took me a while to get into it, all the way until episode 16, where the show really takes off and gets really, really good. And it was just really apparent, especially in the first episode, that Super Sentai had become a business, and maintaining their symbiotic relationship with the toy company, Toei, maintaining its symbiotic relationship with Bandai, was more important to storytelling. And that first episode is just rushing. It's just a mad dash to show the Rangers in their costumes and show the robots as quickly as possible to sell them toys, so they can sell toys that week. Especially that first episode, they do a piss poor job of introducing the characters. The only two characters that they do a good job introducing are the Red Ranger and the Pink Ranger, Rio and Rin. The other three, good luck. So much so that during those first 16 episodes, I kept forgetting which character was which ranger. In between Daigo, Shoji, and Kazu, I just kept forgetting. It was so difficult to keep things straight, and who did what, and what were their powers. And compared to other Super Sentai, when that first episode, boom, they do a fantastic job of introducing who's who and who does what and who is which ranger. But not this show. So that was my first issue. Let's just keeping things straight throughout those first 16 episodes. Then building up to episode 16, they start dropping elements and hints that the White Ranger or Tiger Ranger is coming. They show his sword, his scimitar, on a pedestal, I believe. I don't think it's a rock. And it talks, and it's hinted that the Tiger Ranger is coming, and that soon the Dairanger are going to have a new ally in their ongoing conflict with the Gorma. So episode 16 comes. They finally introduce the Tiger Ranger, and it's a little boy. Yes, it's a little boy. I believe he's 12, maybe younger. He might be 10. He's a little boy and named Ko, and he is the absolute biggest douchebag you could imagine. He's a street kid, and I guess because he's a street kid and he's been handed a raw deal, he's been handed the short end of the stick most of his life, he feels that gives him the right to be just the absolute worst. And guys, when I tell you he's the worst, he is just a punk-ass douche, all right? He's constantly pulling really mean, really gross pranks on the Pink Ranger, Rin. Like, for example, one of his pranks is that he will hold out an item that belongs to her, like her keys or her correspondence, and the moment Rin goes to grab said item from Ko's hand, he will drop the item and grab her boob. I am not kidding. This happened twice with Rin and once with one of the monsters. I repeat, with one of the monsters during a battle. He's fighting a female monster who has breasts, and he grabbed her breasts. I am not making this up. And one of the last pranks that he pulls on Rin is that he pretends to be asleep, and she goes to wake him up, she goes to rouse him, and the moment he gets close enough, he grabs her skirt and lifts it up so he can see her panties. I am not making this up. And then he makes fun of her for wearing granny panties, and then reassures her that she still looks good in those granny panties. This is a 10 to 12-year-old child, all right? And furthermore, when he becomes one of their allies, they have him live with Rin. And I'm like, no. And she even tells him, if you're going to live with me, rule number 1 is you can't grab my boobs anymore. This is a conversation that they have to have on the show. So suffice it to say, I hated the kid. I hated that he was the Tiger Ranger. I hated that his identity was a secret. The other Dairanger were hilariously unaware that this stupid, douchey little kid was the stupid, douchey Tiger Ranger who was kept showing up to help them. And I hated this so much that I honestly considered quitting watching the show. However, from episode 17 onwards, the show gets amazing. This is when they turn it up from 5 to 11. And basically, what they did with what they did with the Tiger Ranger, which was very well done, is show you his hero's journey, show you his transition from this unlikable, questionable character to a noble, heroic one. And that was done really, really well. But his introduction, those first few episodes with Ko in them, you just want to wrap your hands around his neck like Homer Simpson with Bart. Just choke him. Just give him. He's one of those kids that deserves to get whooped in a circle. You know what I'm talking about? Not beaten up, not abused, okay? But just whooped in a circle, if you know what I'm saying. He deserved to have his back porch painted red. Oh my God, did that kid need discipline. But anyway, what I promise you is, if you haven't seen the show, he gets better. And he becomes one of the more likable and crucial characters in the series. And strangely enough, ironically enough, one of the best examples of a Sixth Ranger in Super Sentai, believe it or not. So, from episodes 17 through 49, the show is awesome. The last episode sucks. If you're still interested in seeing the show and you don't want me to spoil it, stop the video here because I'm about to spoil the shit out of it and complain about it openly. So here we go. So the last few episodes, super epic, a great build up to that final episode. They go to confront the Gorma, and then there's this weird, ironic sci-fi twist at the end when they finally confront them. Basically what starts happening is that every time they face off against one of the main villains, one of the main bosses of the show, they crumble, turn to clay, and fall to pieces. And it's a mystery. It's like, why is this happening? So this keeps happening and happening all the way to the end, and they get to the final bad guy, and he says, oh, all the Gorma died ages ago, centuries ago, but I rebuilt everybody out of clay so we could keep fighting. And then the Red Ranger, Ryu, confronts him, they fight each other, and halfway through the fight, he himself turns into clay and crumbles into dust. So the twist, which is kind of interesting and kind of cool, is that they had been fighting for so long that they just all died, and they just kept replacing themselves with clay duplicates. Even the leader had it done and forgot because they had been fighting for so long. And then when they finally fought a superior opponent, meaning the Dairangers, the battles were so intense they couldn't handle it and they just fell apart because they were not the original ones. So on one hand, like I said, cool sci-fi twist, but on the other hand, it feels like a cheat. If you as an audience member who were invested in these characters for so long and were looking forward to seeing these epic brawls with these characters directly fighting the Dairanger, you feel robbed. But that in itself could have been a fun ending, and that would have been okay. But then they shit the bed even further by showing this weird epilogue where the Dairangers are really, really old, and now their grandchildren have taken over being the Dairanger and are off fighting, still fighting monsters and stuff. And it just felt like a joke. After this huge, intense, epic, multiple episode finale, all of a sudden there's this epilogue that's just a complete joke, and the actors in really crappy old people makeup and just making fun of old people with like back problems and like trying to do their kung fu moves and it hurts and they almost fall over and all that. It just felt completely out of place where you can just remove the epilogue and the episode would still be fine in spite of the questionable twist. So yeah, from episode 17 to 49, awesome. Then episode 50, they just shit the bed. So there you go. So that was my experience with 5-Star Squadron Dairanger. Let's talk about the next show that Power Rangers took Sentai footage from, specifically for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 3. And that show is Ninja Squadron Kakuranger. Ninja Squadron Kakuranger. This show is campy, it's ridiculous, it rarely takes anything seriously, and I fucking love it. Oh my god. It's like the Adam West Batman and Legends of Tomorrow had a beautiful, sexy Super Sentai baby. It's basically what this show is. So while Dairanger leaned heavily into Chinese mythology, Kakuranger went all in on Japanese mythology. Okay, so this is the show that Power Rangers got the ninja mechs from, the ones that they use in Power Rangers the movie, as well as season 3 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The suits, the Ranger suits from Kakuranger are the suits for Mighty Morphin Alien Ranger, which, like I said, I didn't know those existed. Why are the aliens ninja? Who knows? Who cares? Why did they change from dinosaur theme to prehistoric creature theme to ninja theme? Nobody questioned it. We didn't question these things as kids. We just watched it and enjoyed it. But the real reason is because this was the next show to take Sentai footage from. So there you go. So what is Ninja Squadron Kakuranger about? So like I said, this goes all into Japanese mythology and folklore and ninja history. Basically what happens in the series is that these really badass 5 ninja captured all the evil yokai, all the evil creatures of Japanese mythology, and captured them behind this gate that only they can open. Fast forward to the present, and 2 of the descendants of these ninja are tricked into opening the gate. Specifically, the red, who would be the red ninja and the blue ninja in the show, the Red Ranger and the Blue Ranger. I believe Sasuke and Saisu are the 2 who are tricked. I apologize if I got the names wrong. So the Red Ranger and Blue Ranger get tricked into opening the gate. All the yokai come out. And now it's like the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. They have to hunt down all those yokai and bring them back and put them back in the gate or destroy them. Interesting fact about this show, the Red Ranger is not the leader. The White Ranger is, the female Ranger. Basically what happened was that when they started producing the show, they managed to cast Satomi Hirose as Ninja White, as Sarahime, who's the Ninja White. And in spite of the fact that, believe it or not, while she might not look it, if you watch the show, she was actually 13 years old when they started filming Kakuranger. And in spite of the fact that she was the youngest cast member, who looks very mature, she actually had the most experience acting out of the entire cast. So there was an executive decision and she was made the leader. But because this was made late into the production of the first episode, and there are basically 3 crews that work on each episode of a Super Sentai. One that handle all the special effects heavy scenes with all the miniatures and rotoscoping, one crew that handles all the fighting sequences and stunt sequences with the characters in costume, and a crew that handles all the scenes with the Rangers out of costume and that involve heavy acting, that require an experienced director to be on site. Because there's these three departments doing three different jobs, and it wasn't communicated, it wasn't decided from the beginning that the White Ranger would be the leader, and all those special effects and action adventure shots, the Red Ranger was always up front. So there's a great deal of confusion as to whether or not Ninja White, Sarahime, is the leader. She is. If you watch the show, she 100% is. As the show progresses, the two excuses that they use for the Red Ranger to be up front is that story-wise, that he's allegedly the toughest, so he can take the most punishment, and he's also the fiercest, the most fearless fighter. Like, he will jump into danger without thinking about it, while Sarahime, Ninja White, is more planned. She's more strategic. And the other reason that the creators gave, after that decision was made to change the leadership, was that the show would be told, even though Ninja White's the leader, the show was still told from the Red Ranger's point of view, as he was one of the two that was tricked into opening the gate. So he is the most determined to set things right and fix his mistake, and put all the yokai back, or destroy all the yokai. So there you go. With that said, I will tell you right now that Sarahime, the Ninja White, is so far my all-time favorite Super Sentai character. She is awesome. Satomi Hirose is a kick-ass actor, very charismatic, very cool, and while the show was predominantly campy, it did have some intense dramatic moments, and 9 times out of 10 they would give her these moments to act, and she would always knock it out of the park. She apparently had a hit show before this one, where her and 2 other girls were magical girls, like Sailor Scouts, like Sailor Moon. And there's an entire episode of Kakuranger that is a crossover with that show, and they imply that the events of that show really did happen, and they are part of the lore of Super Sentai. So make whatever you want out of that. Make of that what you will, I should say. While the mechs in Dairanger were okay, based on Chinese mythology and all that, I more liked the mechs in that show that were animals and would change into humanoid robots, like the Red Dragon and the White Tiger. But the mechs were just okay. The mechs on this show, at first, super lame. It's a pagoda, a building that turns into a robot, and that also turns into 5 mini robots. And I'm like, really? Just a building that turns into... It reminds me of that joke from the movie Big, where one of the toys that they're producing is a building that turns into a robot, and Tom Hanks holds it and goes, no kid would ever play with this. And that's all I can think of when they introduced the first mech, the first Megazord on the show. Then later, thankfully, they changed to the animal-themed ones, the crane, the hawk, the gorilla, wolf, and bear, and frog, the ones from Power Rangers the movie, and those are way better, and I preferred those a lot more. But the first mechs, no, those are so freaking lame. I can't even... The body is a building, and the head is an origami crane. Like, so lame. Thankfully, they changed it. However, when they go on the quest to... There's a whole freaking quest that they go on to get access, to get the scrolls that they can use to summon those mechs. And that saga, that arc was amazing, with the Kakuranger having to split up and go on each face a different challenge to get their mech. The most fascinating one being Ninja Red, Susuke, who has a spiritual guide take him on his quest, And the spiritual guide is played by none other than May, the Pink Ranger from Dairanger, from Dinosaur Squadron Dairanger. So that was cool to see her again. And by the way, that woman has the highest, squeakiest voice ever. She sounds like Nami from Navi from The Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time. Listen! She sounds exactly like her. Maybe it's the same person. I don't know. Let me know if it is. Holy moly. Anyway, so like I said, the show is super duper campy. Not a good 90% of the time, it doesn't take itself very seriously. Very much like the Adam West Batman show, when they're fighting, every great now and then they'll throw in an onomatopoeia. You'll see the words representing the sound effects on the screen. Like when they throw shuriken, you'll see the words like appear like under the shuriken as they're being thrown. Things like that. Unlike other Super Sentai shows when they don't explain what the Rangers do for a living or why they always seem to have money, here it's explicitly explained. They have a food truck that looks like a cat and is alive, and I think that's a sly reference to My Neighbor Totoro and the cat bus from that movie. So their food truck looks like a cat, it's cat themed, and it's alive. And every morning they wake up and they make and sell crepes every day. And they basically live like hippies or gypsies. They just go around in their food truck. They wake up in the morning, sell crepes, and they just go and fight crime. And then they just camp out in tents in front of the food truck. So there you go. And I think that Sarahime's civilian outfit that she wears in almost every episode, which is very gypsy-like, is a reference to that. And fun fact about her, she is the only one when the show starts that's already a ninja. She's already trained, she already knows how to use her powers, and she basically spends the rest of the show training the others and showing them how to master their Kakuranger abilities. And little by little, they get better. But from the beginning, she is the ace of the group. But like I said, they are the descendants of the original ninja that captured the yokai, so it's their responsibility to save the day. But on top of all the cool martial arts stuff, they'll have these random, goofy-ass ninja powers. If a bad guy, like, grabs them by the shirt, and the bad guy just so happened to have them by the shirt and look away for a second, if they look back, only their clothes are left, and they're in their ninja outfits or their ranger outfits. Or they will just grab their clothes and rip them off, and underneath they will have their superhero suits. It's hilarious, and I love it. They will, like, climb up trees really fast, run on water, you know, like a ninja, you know, holding their sword, running over water. They will do all those weird ninja symbols with their hands and transform into things like camouflage, like cross dissolve and vanish. Or there was one time where Sarahime needed to bait someone with food, so she did all the ninja symbols and transformed into a giant hamburger. It was an illusion, but she was a giant hamburger for a few minutes. Just goofy ass nonsense like that is so stupid and silly that it circles back around to being awesome. And the biggest example that I have of this is during the end credits, they play a sequence of the Dorodoro, which are basically the putties from the show, the expendable soldiers from the show, doing a choreographed dance to 90s Japanese hip-hop. The song is called Ninja Minoru Kids, I believe. And yeah, it's one of those things that's so lame and so stupid that it circles back around to being awesome. And eventually, 5 to 6 episodes in, you will get into it. You will start doing the Doro Doro dance. Doro Doro Doro, shooty 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 can dance, dance, doo doo doo. It's infectious. Trust me. So, all that aside, all the fun aside, I would like to report a crime. Are you guys familiar with the character of Rito Revolto from season 3 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? He is a lame, stupid, clumsy, dim-witted, shitty, generic Mighty Morphin Power Rangers expendable villain. That is not the character on this show. In Kakuranger, Rito is Young Noble Jr. He is second in command of all the yokai. He is only second to Dormammu, who is the Grand Emperor of the yokai. And he, Jr., is one bad motherfucker. Alright? So all the yokai, which I thought was really cool, all the yokai on the show can take human form. So one of the cool things about the show, very much like the Kakuranger, who are very good at hiding their identity and like disappearing and camouflaging themselves as hamburgers if they need to. The yokai are also good at camouflaging themselves as human. So anybody can be a yokai. So when Junior goes into his human form, he is a Billy Idol style, Sid Vicious style badass rock star. Who he can like shoot energy beams through his guitar. Alright? He is one badass dude. And when he goes to his yokai form, into his Rito form, skeleton with like half his body camouflage, he's 10 times more formidable. Just a badass character that was completely done dirty in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I'll tell you right now, one of my all-time favorite villains in Super Sentai so far. So much so that when he stops appearing in the show, I felt bad, but things are so epic and so big at that point that it was hard to complain, but man, did I miss him. Jiraya's backstory, the Black Kakuranger. Fun fact about the actor who played him, the actor who played him, in spite of being Japanese, was raised here in America and spoke English fluently and knew no Japanese, but was casted in the show and would have to learn his lines phonetically and learn Japanese by the time they finished filming the series. So very surreal, but every great now and then he will say full sentences, full phrases in English, and very surreal to be watching the show in Japanese and just every great now and then hearing him say something in English, which was cool. Especially impressive if this was his first time speaking Japanese. Anyway, but his backstory is that a yokai in human form murdered his father, who was a New York City police officer. So one of his biggest motivations to join the Kakuranger is to find the yokai that murdered his father. And when he does, is an intense fight scene where they pummel the shit out of each other and they're both left bloody and bruised and cut, and it's super intense. Like one of the when he finds out that guy killed his father and he first punches him, like the guy like spins around and like 50 gallons of blood shoot out of his mouth. Just the kind of stuff you would never see on Power Rangers. But one of the most intense and legitimately badass martial arts fight scenes that I've ever seen, and I saw it on Super Sentai. And later I found out, thanks to you guys, that the actor who played the yokai who murdered his father was actually the actor's real life father, who is a martial arts legend in the Hong Kong action scene world, and volunteered to play that role to make sure that his son would have the best possible fight scene he could have. And lo and behold, Daddy delivered, because that fight scene was amazing. So yes, Bioman is still my favorite Super Sentai show, but this one comes in a close second. Now, I know what most of you are wondering. Am I going to keep talking about Super Sentai? Am I going to watch O-Ranger, which is the next show after Kakuranger? Will I go back in time and watch other shows like Go Ranger or Jetman? That is completely up to you guys and how you react to this video, and if you request it. If you want it, I will do it. And now for the announcements before we close this out. Right now on my Patreon page is an ERod on My Adventures with Superman Season 3. So if you want to know my thoughts about the latest installments of that awesome show, all you have to do is go to my Patreon page and check it out. If you are not a patron, however, go to patreon.com/ERod and pledge $1. That's it. $1. You're helping me to continue to produce content, and in return, I'm giving you bonus videos. You can't beat that with a wooden stick. And now for the announcement you've all been waiting for, what's going to be my next honest review, which will be on DuckTales 2017. Coming soon to this YouTube channel. So there you go. As per usual, thank you so much for your ongoing support, because I could not do what I do without you.